I am Precious. Am I? Let's start in the Middle East, where Iran has designated the armies of the European countries as terrorist groups following the EU's decision last week to list the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, a terrorist organization. The announcement came as the U.S. warned Tehran of a potential military action, with Iran threatening to retaliate. At the legislative session, lawmakers wore the green uniform of the Guard Corps in a display of solidarity, chanting "Death to America, death to Israel, and shame on Europe." The session was held on the 47th anniversary of the return from the exile of the late Ayatollah Khamenei, who founded the Islamic Republic in 1979. The Guards are the ideological arm of Iran's military, tasked with safeguarding the Islamic Revolution from external and internal threats. They have been accused by Western governments of orchestrating a crackdown on the recent protest movement that left thousands dead in the country. Now, to discuss this with me, I'm joined by global affairs analyst Benga Onifade. He joins me from the UK. Good to have you join us, Benga.
Good afternoon.
So from what we understand, the U.S. Navy currently has about 6 destroyers, 1 aircraft carrier, and 3 littoral combat ships in the region. When you look at where all of this started from and today, has the risk of war been raised?
Yes, I absolutely believe so. There's a big risk that, well, that's actually in itself has fueled tension, but at the same time, that is raising significantly the risk of war. And we're talking about, the relationship between Tehran and the United States is at, should we say, at a historic low. Because, and again, of course, after Iran's parliament designated, the EU militaries as terrorist group. But one thing we need to understand is, yes, the Americans got the Armada, which is the biggest aircraft carrier, and it's been patrolling that region for a while. America would not just station things there, weaponry there for no reason if they do not want to act. But at the same time, you've got President Trump, who is actually thinking, and yes, he's firing on all cylinders, but at the same time, he's thinking very, very hard, because Iran is not Venezuela, which is one thing we've got to understand. They are very set in their ways, heavily militarized region as well, and of course they've got the funding for some should we call it the set small different clubs in terms of retaliation. So it's very difficult to just think you can destabilize that region. I think
Trump is riding on the momentum of Venezuela, and then the fact that he was able to strike the Iranian nuclear site last year. Do you think that he's underestimating the capacity of Iran to retaliate if he does get to strike them?
No, I definitely would not think he's underestimating them, because if he's underestimating them, if he underestimates them, he would have struck long ago. We've got the Armada, and of course we do have the USS Abraham Lincoln at the Persian Gulf, which has been going on for a while, and this has different effects, not just military. It could affect the economy as well, because the Strait of Hormuz, which should we say the bulk of oil of the world's oil is actually going through. It claims ownership by nobody, but Iran's actually threatened it before, and you can see oil prices been going up. President Trump is looking at the economy. He doesn't want this to affect the economy, which he perceives probably is going well the way he wants. He wants low oil prices. So it has a regional effect and a worldwide effect. OPEC is on his tail as well. So I wouldn't think he's underestimating them. Hence, he's making it clear. Come to the table. Come to the table. Let's have a deal. Let's talk. And, we do have Iran, should I say commander-in-chief, the Ayatollah, who's the 86-year-old man, very much set in his ways. He's in charge of all the missiles, all the arsenals. We saw what Iran did with Israel. It did not just take. It wasn't just a 10-day war. Somebody has to force them to stop. So I don't think America is destabilizing. While America is multitudes of strength above Iran, I just don't think it will be a walkover. It just wouldn't make, it wouldn't be that easy for them to do. But, we have leverage and we have threats. I think initially if you're just going to go back to a few presidents before, we had President Obama. He forced Iran's hand to the table, but he had to pay them to stop. President Trump thought this is a waste. Let's have a different deal. And we could see this is actually stemming from all that. President Trump didn't like that deal. I don't think he wants to underestimate them because he just doesn't want to spend that, money which they haven't got. So it's just a way to analyze the demand, look at the difference, deal. Now let's re-strategize, and but of course they could come in form of threat, and then Iran now calling the EU, names back and forth. But Iran, as they're equally aware. You're fighting the US, you are fighting literally NATO, you are fighting 27, 30 countries. I don't think they've got.
That's what I really want to ask, because both sides, despite the standoff between US and Iran, both sides have signaled some sort of interest to come to the table. I mean, what would be the most effective way to diffuse the situation? And do you think that Iran will capitulate?
Of course. I mean, the different ways to come to the table to get each other to come to the table. It could be in form of a certain, again, I think they did have Article 7 before, which they could present to United Nations to justify the move. At that point, Iran's hands are forced down because you're not going to fight the entire world, really. So that's one way. I think another way is America's actually got people in there in the parliament. Again, there are ways to coax these guys. Okay, we're not asking you to change your ways, but at the same time, we don't want to destabilize your region. Yes, it's going to have lasting effects on both sides. And I don't think anybody wants to give up their life at the moment. So I think overall it's all about diplomatic measures, really. And George Orwell better than war. Overall, that's the way. Yes, Iran probably allows. It's quite difficult because it distrust of the West, meaning people are campaigning, but you're not allowing cameras in. Am I in the room to say they should allow people to film what's going on? Probably Iran has to go de-escalate a little bit at that end. People who have been injured, get them treated, give them treatment. Probably pose that listening ears to the people on ground. If you get the support of the people on your side, I think in a way you have actually won the war, because yes, like I said, they allowing inspection in, which the world is actually saying, do you know what? Yes, we're allowing that in, but at the same time, you are killing your own people. Probably. But again, we've got an Islamic State. It looks like the way right now, the people do not want that Islamic State. Some people said it's responsible. It's a very, very complex situation.
Very.
Probably, I think some form of a dialogue, have everyone on the table and something to resolve. That overall, it's all about dialogue, really. And maybe you probably get the odd neutral sponsors from abroad as witnesses. We're going to find a neutral ground at some point, somehow.
I mean, for almost every conflict, you find foreign, non-state actors and foreign actors as well. But in terms of retaliatory measures you were talking about earlier, Iran has now designated the armies of the European countries as terrorist groups, and that follows the same move made by EU last week as well. I'm just wondering if this coming from Iran has any far-reaching implication or consequences for European countries.
Well, right now you've got to think, okay, what is the deal between European countries and Iran? I think the EU, they do have interest. Otherwise, they're not going to poke their nose they're not going to poke their nose in this business. So they do have interest. Number one, you've got to think about what happened during Iraq, 1994 and then 2003. What happened was in America, I think we had a few people who opposed the war, but there are opportunities. There will be a rebuilding phase. Let's just, for example, say we end up having a war. There will be a rebuilding phase. People want to get contracts. So again, while the EU are not exactly keen on the war stage or on the war front, but they are keen on having some form of interest at the rebuilding phase. So there's something out there for them. I think it's a move that signals a near total breakdown in diplomacy between Iran and the West. I think Tehran frames the IRGC as a counter-terrorism force. Who fought ISIS, Western allies increasingly view them, on the other hand, as an engine of repression. So it's an escalation which is actually complicating, the potential for nuclear negotiation. Iran's leader has warned that the US attack will trigger, all-out regional war. But again, overall, everyone has a little bit of interest. I mean, Iran has got, potential opportunities in terms of oil and etc. And then again, post-apocalypse or war, for example, if that happens, there are opportunities on both sides. So the EU is looking at, okay, we're going to back America, who's our ally. Even if you don't get involved in that war, I think the post-building contract, any little bit form of opportunity is there. It's going to help us regardless of how it pans out. Hence the saber rattling which is going on.
Well, hopefully we begin to see the beginning of talks between both sides, but we're following developments on this. Thank you so much for your time, as always. Global Affairs Analyst Benga Onifadi.
Thanks for having me.
All right, you're watching What Now? We'll take a break and return with another story.